Welcome back. President Trump is lashing out at several big-name conservative media figures after they publicly criticized his threats earlier this week to wipe out Iranian civilization. The president bashing those media figures who've been among his staunchest supporters in the past, calling them all, quote, low IQ, nut jobs, troublemakers and losers just trying to latch on to MAGA. Joining me now to break this all down is our panel, Daniella Diaz, congressional reporter for NOTUS, Kendra Barkoff, former spokesperson to then Vice President Joe Biden and managing director at SKDK, and Rob Bluey, president and executive editor of the Daily Signal. Thanks to all of you for being here. Daniella, let me start with you. So my colleague John Allen reported earlier this week that the rift that was forming in MAGA world over the president's threats about Iran to wipe out the entire Iranian civilization have backfired. That we see all of these MAGA figures speaking out and saying enough is enough. What do you make of this? Is it just these loud voices, or are we starting to see some real cracks?
It should be a major warning sign for President Donald Trump that some of his staunchest followers, people who have advocated and promoted him, especially leading up to the 2024 November election, are now speaking against this Iran war. I mean, it should be concerning him, and maybe that Truth Social post that he had criticizing them and their concerns of this war, he should probably be listening to what they're saying when they're the base. I was in Iowa earlier this week with Senator Alyssa Slotkin, and I talked to a lot of voters. And the Iran war is something that they do not understand on both sides. And they're seeing their gas prices go up. It's really hard to explain to American voters the mechanics and the foreign relations of why we're in this war in the first place. It's not something that's really reaching the American voter across the country. And so this is a huge thing that Donald Trump is going to have to explain, especially considering these midterms are going to be so essential for him to keep the majority.
Absolutely. Rob, put this into context in what you're seeing, because the White House, the president's aides say this is not a real break in MAGA, that if you look at polling of the president's base supporters, they are still firmly behind him. Is that the case, or do you think that his support is starting to fray among some of his staunchest supporters?
Well, President Trump needs to stay focused on the mission, and that is completing the job in Iran and then getting refocused on the domestic issues that Daniella talked about. I mean, there are so many things leading up to this midterm election that will be at stake. And I think you covered it earlier in the show, Kristen. Militarily, they're having success. Politically, they're having a challenge explaining it. And every time you are explaining in politics, you're probably losing. And I think that what the president was doing yesterday was sending a clear message to the Tucker Carlsons and Megyn Kellys of the world that he's not going to be intimidated or bullied. Now, from a messaging standpoint, I'm not sure I would have taken the bait, because you know what Tucker Carlson did today? He put out new merchandise with low IQ on a hat, and now he's trying to make the most of it and draw more attention to himself.
Kendra, how does this all play in the midterms? Because people are focused on the economy and affordability. This is a foreign policy issue. Right now, it's obviously very in focus. But do you think that by November, the page gets turned back to the economy?
I don't, because people have been paying for high prices the entirety that he has been president of the United States. You had his own advisors in a New York Times article saying publicly, this is not what MAGA voted for. Getting into foreign wars is not what our base has voted for. And so when you're having his own advisors in the New York Times publicly say, this is not what we voted for, how are you going to get the mainstream Republicans to vote for him in the fall? You're going to see a major shift.
Rob, respond to that. And the fact that President Trump said this is an excursion, but boy, he is looking for a way out, and it's not clear he's found the exit route.
I do think the party probably comes together, and that MAGA base is there. Whether there's the turnout is a question that I think we can debate, and we'll have to wait and see. It's the independent voters that had broken for President Trump in 2016 and 2024 that I think he probably most has to worry about when it comes to these congressional and Senate races, because if they're displeased with the direction of the country and they see that the price of gas is still high and groceries and rent and all of those things are at levels they were under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, yeah, they're going to be facing some headwinds.
All right, let's talk about the Democrats now, because many potential 2028 hopefuls have converged at this conference hosted by the Reverend Al Sharpton. Former Vice President Kamala Harris made some comments today that are raising some eyebrows, getting a lot of attention. Let's play them, get everyone's reaction on the other side.
Listen, I might. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it in the context of then, is who and where and how can the best job be done for the American people? That's how I'm thinking about it.
Daniella, that, of course, in a response to whether she's thinking about running for president again. What do you make of that response? She seems to be increasingly leaning into the idea of running.
I'm not surprised. I don't know if anyone here is surprised. I mean, look, let's go back to the November 2024 election. It was a situation where she became the nominee because of a lot of criticism of then President Joe Biden. I covered all of that outrage from House Democrats, Senate Democrats during that time. And it's now possibly going to be a new opportunity for her to run for president. I mean, it's going to be a very crowded field. Like I said, I was just with Alyssa Slotkin in Iowa. She did not rule it out. I mean, there's probably going to be dozens of candidates.
A lot of people not ruling it out.
Even at this conference with Al Sharpton, I mean, it's a dozen people that he's been speaking to about running for president. But I'm not surprised that she's eyeing this, considering she might want another opportunity, and this time on her own merit.